What's going on, guys? Noah Sanford here, hanging out on my Ranger. Just pulled it in the driveway. I literally just got done wrapping up with a guided trip this afternoon and evening. So the information for this week's fishing report is going to be very up to date considering I was on the water 30 minutes ago. So jumping right into it as usual, guys, let's talk about water temps, wind conditions, what I've been catching these fish on, and most importantly, how I've been catching them. So jumping into the water temps, being that I was just on the lake just a little bit ago, most of what I was seeing on my main lake points in the deeper coves that I was fishing with my customers today was in that kind of 57 to 59 degree water temp. So we're creeping up on 60. I guarantee you're probably gonna find some 60 or 61, maybe even 62 if you go into those shallower, calmer coves. But in most of those main lake and deeper points that we were fishing today for those big female pre-spawn bass, those are gonna be kind of like mid to high 50s. So plan on that this weekend. If you are going to be targeting those shallow fish, you might find some 60 or 61. Talking about wind conditions, today was pretty breezy. It wasn't bad for the first 2 hours, but the last couple hours of our trip was pretty windy. But this is Thursday, right? You guys are wondering about Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So actually, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday look pretty dang good. I think the worst is going to be like gusts of 13 or 15. So it's not going to be bad at all, depending on what boat you have. But you honestly, for most of you guys out there, whether you're bank, kayak, boat, you guys probably should all be all right. So don't worry about the wind, and then like I said, water temp high 50s. Let's go ahead and jump into where I've been catching these fish. So the pattern has definitely stayed consistent, and it stayed true to what it's been the last week or two. I've been catching most of my big female bass on those main lake points, offshore points, and down the centers and guts of those coves. Whereas if you want to target the male bass, you can go into those shallower coves, that shallower water, 5, 10, 15 feet. But if you want to go after those females, 20, 30, 35, that's kind of going to be your foot range. So that's going to be the depth. And now moving on to the most important part, how I've been catching them. It's really been kind of a mix all across the board. Actually, looking at my front deck right here, I've got a jig tied on, I've got a drop shot tied on, and I've got a Ned rig tied on. So that's a majority of what I was fishing with my customers today: jig, drop shot, Ned rig. The reason for that is because it's a slow bottom bait presentation. And keep in mind, the jig I was using was a smaller jig. It was almost kind of like a finesse jig. So keep in mind, most of the presentations I've been using were actually smaller today. Now, last week I was telling you guys to use bigger presentations. Throughout this last week though, and this afternoon, that bigger presentation didn't even get a bite for me. The only thing I could get bit on was those finesse, smaller applications. So really interesting to note. I think part of it has to do with the fact that it got windy today and those fish got maybe a little bit spooky, but really today and this week especially, has been mainly those finesse presentations. So that's really interesting to note, but keep that in mind when you go out, guys. So quick recap for you. I'm going to keep this episode nice and short for you guys. Water temps mid 50s, wind conditions looking good Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Just a little bit breezy at most, but nothing unmanageable. Where I've been catching these fish, if you want to target the male bass, the pre-spawn male bass, fish in that 5 to 10 foot range with reaction baits. If you want to target the big female pre-spawn bass, go in that 20 to 35 feet of water with your finesse baits too. Once again though, try everything, guys. You can try your big baits too. Just because something has worked or hasn't worked for me doesn't mean it won't work or will work for you. So my fishing reports for you guys, like the one you're watching, this is really just kind of some general advice, general recommendations, just to kind of get you guys ready, but don't listen to 100% what I'm saying. Go out there and kind of try to figure out the pattern for yourself too. Sometimes that can be more effective. So appreciate you guys always coming along and tuning in for the fishing reports. Really appreciate you guys. The channel is growing really quickly and I appreciate all the support we've been having. My name is Noah Sanford. We'll see you guys out on the water.